Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date stories in the global financial world.
U.S. retail sales suffered a record drop in March and output at factories declined by the most since 1946. Analysts' views that the economy has contracted in the first quarter at its sharpest pace in decades as extraordinary measures to control the spread of the novel coronavirus shut down the country. The reports on April the 15th came as millions of Americans have been thrown out of work and were the most solid pieces of evidence yet that the economy was in deep recession and potentially at the risk of a depression. States and local governments have issued stay-at-home or shelter-in-place orders affecting more than 90% of Americans to curb the spread of COVID-19. Retail sales plunged 8.7% last month, the biggest decline since the government started tracking the series in 1992, the Commerce Department said, and their data for February was revised slightly up to show retail sales slipping 0.4% instead of falling 0.5% as previously reported. The $46.2 billion drop in sales in March was almost equal in a single month to the $49.1 billion peak to trough decline that unfolded over 16 months in the Great Recession.
Apple released a smaller iPhone priced at $399, cutting the starting price for the company's smartphone line in a move to broaden its appeal to budget-conscious customers. As the coronavirus hobbles the global economy, Apple took the wraps off its cheapest iPhone ever, with the world gripped by the first economic recession since the financial crisis. The budget-friendly iPhone SE comes with a $399 price tag. That's $50 less than the cheapest Apple model out there, the soon-to-be-retired iPhone 8. By dropping the price, Apple hopes it can lure away fans of cheaper but feature-rich Android-driven models made by Samsung and Chinese handset makers like Xiaomi. A few sacrifices come along with the price cut. While the SE will have some wireless charging and a high-end camera, it cannot connect to next-generation 5G wireless technology. Despite that, Apple is betting a lower-priced model could lock more users into services such as Apple TV Plus, Apple Music, and iCloud. It's given free one-year access to Apple TV with the purchase of the low-budget phone, just like it does with its higher prices models. Apple has been pouring cash into subscription services, which are now the source of faster revenue growth as handset sales slow. It's hoping to have 600 million paying subscribers by end of this year. With many of Apple's retail stores closed around the world, online orders for the iPhone SE will go live, with Apple aiming to deliver devices starting April 24th. But with the world reeling from a health crisis, it is unclear whether consumers are in the mood or even have the extra cash for a new phone, no matter how much Apple drops the price.
Finance officials from the group of 20 major economies agreed on April the 15th to suspend debt service payments for the world's poorest countries from May the 1st until the end of the year, as a group of private creditors also backed offering debt relief. The G20 also called on private creditors to participate in the initiative on comparable terms. The initiative is part of efforts to bolster the global economy amid the coronavirus outbreak, which is pushing the world into deep recession since the Great Depression of the 1930s. The G20 wants to stabilize energy markets, citing the energy ministers' support for the agreement reached by OPEC and OPEC+. Saudi Arabia's finance minister added that the group is still working with the OECD and other stakeholders to advance the digital economy taxation file.
Austria allowed thousands of shops to reopen on April 14th, becoming one of the first countries in Europe to loosen its lockdown imposed to curb the spread of the new coronavirus. Austria acted early in its outbreak to close schools, theaters, restaurants, non-essential shops and other gathering places roughly 4 weeks ago. It has told the public to stay home and work from there if possible. The Alpine Republic has fared relatively well so far, having reported 384 deaths in total, fewer than some larger European countries have been suffering each day. The daily increase in confirmed cases has fallen to low single digits in percentage terms, and hospitalizations have stabilized. Last week, the government outlined a step-by-step plan to reopen parts of the economy, starting with shops of up to 400 square meters, roughly twice the playing area of a singles tennis court, as well as all DIY and garden centers. They are due to be followed by shopping centers, larger shops and hairdressers from May 1st. It remains unclear whether, even with limits on the number of people allowed inside shops and a requirement for all shoppers to wear face masks, the government is sending a mixed message about the lockdown in place until the end of April.
The European Union's next long-term budget will raise funds to sponsor economic recovery after the coronavirus pandemic. The head of the Executive European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that the larger 7-year budget should be a European answer to a crisis that'll shrink sharply economic output this year in EU countries. She said during a news conference that officials are not talking about €1 billion, but talking about €1 trillion, looking at the investment initiative that has to be done. Charles Michel, president of the European Council, made up of the bloc's 27 national heads of state, said leaders and governments will discuss a reworking of plans for the 2021 to 2027 EU joint budget during a video conference summit on April the 23rd. Von der Leyen added that spending from the bloc's joint coffers would be front-loaded to inject as much funds as possible in the first part of the 7-year scheme. The EU is discussing how to finance recovery from a deep recession that is expected to follow the pandemic. Ideas range from increasing the overall volume of next joint budget to channel more funds to the most effective countries, to using it as a financial vehicle to borrow funds on the market and leverage them to spur large-scale investment. Von der Leyen noted that the European Union would host an online conference on May the 4th for governments and organizations to pledge money to support search for a vaccine to the virus.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.